Right. Good evening, everyone. First of all, thank you for spending your evening with us and joining us for our Stop Illegal Fireworks Town Hall. We're so happy to have you here. My name is Michelle Milam. I'm Crime Prevention Manager for the Richmond Police Department, and I'll be serving as your moderator for this evening's forum. So, tonight is going to be about problem solving, and we have a problem that we all need to talk about. So, I like to read the news. So, I was reading Richmond Side, taking a look at a couple of different articles. Stop illegal fireworks town hall to take place in Richmond. And it shows pictures of community advocates who are working on illegal fireworks issues. It also shows some of the dried brush that we see sometimes around the city from illegal fireworks. It shows one of our fire inspectors sitting with residents. And of course, what's on our mind, fires and the Los Angeles fires, and also just the aftermath of illegal fireworks in our community. If you've lived in Richmond for any time, like I'm a longtime resident, it's not uncommon to hear not just small fireworks, but large professional industrial sized fireworks that go on in the community. And we've all had to figure out ways to cope with it over the years. So tonight we're going to talk about it, but it's going to be about collaboration and it's going to be about problem solving. We're bringing community members, we're bringing city leadership, we're bringing our chief, our fire chief, our police chief, departments from around the city together to study and to come together around some solutions about how we address this issue, because it's not just an issue for Richmond, it's an issue all over, especially in California when it's so easy to get access to these fireworks. But we know that these aren't just harmless celebrations. Back in the day, where you have some sparklers and you go outside on your front porch and just enjoy the 4th of July or whatever festivities you're partaking in. These sometimes go on for weeks and months. They impact public safety responses. They can traumatize residents and pets. They increase the risk of fire. And they also, quite frankly, strain our emergency services. So tonight, what you're going to hear is you'll hear directly from the Richmond Police Department. And so you'll get to ask questions. You'll hear directly from the Richmond Fire Department, from Public Works, and from some of our community representatives that have been working in the community to raise awareness around this. And I really want to thank them because of their advocacy. We were able to have this forum tonight, and we appreciate them. We're going to walk through the city's 2025 enforcement strategy. We're going to talk about public outreach efforts and how we're working across the city to educate, prevent, and enforce. And you're also going to hear a presentation from Julie Freestone, who is a longtime Richmond resident and a community leader. And her and the coalition has been on the forefront of this campaign to raise awareness about stopping illegal fireworks. And we appreciate her insight. This is what real community policing is about. It's about bringing everyone to the table to confront a shared issue and working on that together. And so we are so happy to have you here today. So I'm going to explain a little bit of housekeeping on how we will work tonight. If you have a question, and we're reserving a large portion of tonight for your questions, please drop your questions in the chat. And I will go back and I will ask those questions of our panelists who will be on panel tonight so that you will have an opportunity to get your questions answered. Tonight is about you. It's about having that conversation. So make sure you drop your questions in the chat. The other thing is, because we're on a Zoom meeting, please make sure that you mute yourself because I'm sure you have things going on in the background. And so we appreciate that, just so that we can hear what's going on and we can hear our answers and the questions that are being posed to us. So to start us off, I'd like to welcome two of our city council members who have shown strong leadership on this issue. So I'd like to welcome Councilmember Sue Wilson and Councilmember Soheila Bana. I will have Councilmember Wilson go first and maybe give a few words, followed by Councilmember Bana. And then Councilmember Bana, if you can introduce our community coalition so that they can have a few words, that would be excellent.
All right. Thank you so much for that kind introduction, Michelle. Again, to echo, thank you so much, everyone, for coming together to join us for this time where we can learn from each other what's going on in the community to help solve this problem and maybe brainstorm a little bit about ways we can do it even better in the future. One of the things that I will be putting on the table during our sort of question and answer is that I think it's very important when we look at solutions for fireworks that we look beyond the city limits of Richmond, and that we avoid the temptation to just put all the responsibility on our police force in order to solve this problem. For reasons that I think we'll discuss, I don't think it's realistic to expect the police to be able to catch people in the act of using fireworks to an extent that it's really going to put a dent. And so I am going to invite you all who are interested in, I know some of you are interested in working on this issue with me, and I believe Councilmember Bana is as well, is I'm very interested in taking an approach to put pressure on the people who are importing the fireworks into the state of California. So I hope we have some time on the agenda where we can talk about ways, specifically, a lot of our fireworks come from the state of Nevada, and our governor does have some tools in order to slow the tide of fireworks coming in. And so I think we're going to focus mostly on Richmond solutions today, but I also sort of want to offer that framework too, is that I'm very interested in working on sort of across in a coalition of cities in order to cut the supply both from Mexico and from Nevada. But again, we'll have plenty of time to talk about it. Thank you so much for being here.
Okay, I think it's my turn. Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I'm very excited about this meeting because it shows our synergy. When a group of residents approached me and said they're very unhappy with illegal fireworks, they think something can be done, I welcome the opportunity to invite the city administration to collaborate. And guess what? Here we are all together. We have the fire department, police department, public works, code enforcement, community members, and I'm grateful to the core resident group that started the campaign, including Janice, Terry, and Julie, who are here. I really appreciate your trust in the city administration, your collaborative approach, and I'm very grateful to all the city administration leadership team who are here with us tonight. Thank you very much, everyone. And with that, Julie, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I'm delighted to see everybody here. It's sort of a miracle, I'd say. I'm Julie Freestone, and I've lived in the North and East for 35 years. I was involved in the Have Fun But Don't Shoot Your Gun campaign more than 25 years ago, and that was a successful effort to stop celebratory gunfire. Now, in that effort, residents put up window signs, they wore buttons, they went door to door, and they created community pressure to let everyone know that we did not want dangerous behavior here. I think some of the reasons that that campaign worked is that residents and the city departments worked together, and because neighbors asked neighbors to stop shooting. That's an important piece here, and I'm going to go back to that at some point. So now I'm a member of a grassroots organization called Stop Illegal Fireworks, and let me say that it did not take more than a nanosecond for this group to come together. It was extraordinary how many people, I think we broke records on Nextdoor for people indicating their interest, their desire to get involved. It was pretty amazing. It felt that sometimes like it feels like being on a runaway train, I think. So we're delighted that this is an opportunity for a public forum so we can hear what the city of Richmond is planning to do to reduce illegal fireworks, because we haven't heard much up to now. And so this is great. And we want to hear ideas. There have been lots of ideas put forward on Nextdoor and in other ways from the community about strategies and particularly how residents can help. So we're hoping the city will take the ideas from today's meeting and implement some of them immediately. And I appreciate what Councilmember Wilson said about looking for strategies to work statewide and with other states. That's all important, but that takes a long time. And I don't want this to be put off because there's plenty of low-hanging fruit out there that we can capitalize on. So so far our group has launched a website. We've designed, we have very lucky to have some marketing professionals in our group, and they've designed some window signs that we hope will encourage our neighbors to stop illegal fireworks. So I don't know, Captain Lopez, are we going to be able to show the signs? But they can be downloaded and printed from our website. And we also encourage people to make their own. You know, you can have contests in your neighborhood for kids to make their own signs. Captain Lopez, do you want me to try to share the screen and show the signs, or?
I believe Michelle has access. Do you?
Councilmember Bana can probably make you the co-host, a co-host, and then you can share.
Or just give me permission to share the screen. Anyway,
Either.
I'll go on and I'll show you the signs in a minute. However, let me say this. What we need the city to step up and print the signs. We have people ready to give them out to businesses and to their neighbors. We cannot print the signs. I mean, this seems like a little thing, doesn't it? But we've been saying for weeks now, we need somebody to step up and print the signs. So, okay, that's one ask, which we need somebody to answer. So the idea is to let everybody know that we don't want illegal fireworks. Also, we're hoping the city will put notices on vehicle windshields. And I know that Captain Lopez is working on this. The ones that the police department or code enforcement put out for the street sweeping got a lot of attention. So this is a great way to let people know that fireworks are illegal. It seems pretty simple, doesn't it? So, okay, that would be a great way to take proactive action. There are a lot of other strategies. And our group has been working recently with a statewide coalition. They've been working for a number of years on ordinances and other strategies. And if you read the notes, we took some notes on our last meeting with them. There's a lot of exciting stuff going on statewide and across states and with Nevada. And we should become part of this. There's no reason for us not to. So I say this, I'm going to close with this. This is an all hands on deck situation. All of us that are on this screen and many more people beyond this. We all have a role to play. And I promised myself last July 4th, when I was standing in the backyard and screaming, "I'm sorry," at the dispatcher, because I could see embers falling around my house, that if I were still screaming in my backyard next July 4th without having done a thing, I would never forgive myself. So I'm doing something now, and I hope everybody else will start doing something. And just this meeting makes me feel better about what will happen in my backyard next July 4th. So, okay. So if I can share the screen, I will try to show you the eye-catching.
You should be able to share your screen.
Okay, so
I put the link in the chat box also. So there's both links over there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Looks like we have it.
We have these in Spanish and English. So very dramatic, burning house. And then if you don't want that much drama, here's a very frightened pet. And you can see that these are downloadable. And let's see if I can do this. I don't know. Here we go. And we have them in Spanish too. So there's the dog and there's the house. I say this again, we have no interest in being the only ones who have these signs. So other people are welcome to design their own signs. I think part of the reason that have fun but don't shoot your gun worked so well is because we did go door to door and say to our neighbors, this is what we expect. Will you join us? So we have people who said that they would take the signs and distribute them. So somebody print them and we are ready to go. So thank you. And I'm glad you're all here.
Thank you so much, Julie. And thank you and everybody on the coalition for your work and your advocacy. This is what being a resident really is about, is taking ownership. And I just want to say how much I appreciate it. And perhaps I'm saying this a little bit out of order, but we do print yard signs for the 4th of July and for legal fireworks campaigns. So I would be happy to work with you to print some of those up. And I'm sure that printing these things will not be a barrier for you. So we will work with you on that, especially since it came from residents. So I think that's something really, really valuable. And thank you for spending your time on developing this. You know, the issue of illegal fireworks is such a huge one. I remember in 2020, when we all were kind of trapped together in the middle of COVID, we had one of the worst seasons for fireworks that I can remember. We had a forum online, and literally that was the largest Zoom meeting I ever hosted. I think there were close to 300 people who were online because the fireworks are so bad. So this is an important topic to talk about, but we do have solutions here and people at the table. So I want to turn it over to our fire chief, Chief Aaron Osorio, to talk a little bit about the role of RFD, because a lot of people ask, what does the city actually do? So, what are you guys doing about this? And we need to have some answers for people because oftentimes we're not our best advertisers of what we do. So, Chief Osorio, can you tell me about the role of the fire department? What does the fire department do to combat this issue?
Good evening, everybody. Aaron Osorio, Richmond Fire. Um, I'll, I believe Captain Lopez is probably going to give a really good overview of our city plan, because before this was ever brought to the council's attention, we had already been working on this campaign. Albeit it didn't include the graphics that the community members had worked on. We have recognized since COVID that this has been a significant problem in the city. And it's not just one day or one weekend. It seems to start weeks before and last for weeks after, and then picks back up during New Year's Eve, New Year's time. But I also have realized that there is a lot of misinformation about the role of the fire department in these types of operations. The fire department's role in all of these fireworks operations, besides emergency response to the aftermath of fireworks, such as small debris fires, structure fires, vegetation fires, has to do with our crews report into the dispatch center when they see activity. They may be on another type of an incident responding, and then when they see activity going on, they call it in. We also have to deal with the collection from the police department of confiscated fireworks. We handle the storage of those fireworks in a secure location. And then we do the follow-up with the state fire marshal's office in coordinating the final tally and the pickup by the state fire marshal to take it for destruction outside the city limits. We are not involved in the citation aspect of fireworks enforcement. That is not within the scope of the fire department. There has been, in my career, one season where we attempted to assist in that duty. And it was, we had a number of our personnel put in situations that became a little unsafe. And so we backed away from that position when it comes to enforcement. But we are there to support the police department with any of the operations they need. If we come across fireworks in the sense of what appears to be maybe a distribution or selling operation, which we have stumbled upon in the past through inspections and through other emergency response incidents, we've stumbled into what looks like fireworks storage. Then we've also involved the police department. But for the most part, for us, we deal on the tail end of the enforcement and citation process. When it comes to during that period of 4th of July, we will consider upstaffing from our normal staffing that we use, because a lot of that is dependent upon weather conditions during that time of year. If we have weather conditions like we did over the weekend, and this was 4th of July weekend, we would have significantly upstaffed our department because the risk is much higher. There are some years where we are socked in with fog and dew, and so the fire danger is a little less, and so we won't upstaff quite as much. So we leave our upstaffing decisions until we can have about a 7-day out forecast on the projected weather, and then we make our operational decisions based on those indicators ahead of time. There was a question in the chat for me, Michelle, or was that for somebody else?
No, I think that's just in general. We'll come back to questions.
Okay. And we also coordinated with the police department when it comes to our public information officers and the social media content that we put out. For the last 3 years, at least, if not longer, that I can remember. We have coordinated our messaging so that it has the same phone numbers, the same info, the graphic looks the same. Both public information officers for both departments will put it out on all of the social media platforms that each of those departments have. So for the fire department, we put out messaging on X, Facebook, Instagram, Nextdoor, and Nixle. And the police department has always matched that same that same plan and put them out on their end. And then we have worked together on determining where we were going to place signage throughout the city with the Public Works department. Some years that's consisted of lit message boards on main thoroughfares. They usually have to be rented, so there's only a couple of spots we can do that with them, but that comes from the Public Works department. And then the Lines and Signs Division has made A-frame signs that we can put in front of our firehouses that state that fireworks are illegal. And we put those out on the days leading up to 4th of July. So that's the bulk of what we do. There's a lot behind the scenes that we do as far as preparing for the operational period, our deployment of resources, coming up with an incident action plan. So we're all speaking a common language, communications plan with the police department. There's a lot of operational things behind the scenes that we have to hammer out for that entire weekend, the 3rd of July and the 4th of July.
Thank you so much, Chief. And I see that a couple of folks have dropped things in the chat. We will definitely get to some of those questions, so hang on to those. But thank you so much for giving us an overview. And if you didn't know, if you need to store illegal fireworks, the fire department is really, the entity and the vehicle that does that. Especially, it was great to hear more about some of the public education efforts you guys are engaged in. So we're now going to move over to the police department presentation. So I'm going to turn it over to Captain John Lopez to give an overview of what does the city do? How does the police department respond, not just for the 4th of July weekend, but really it kind of starts now and it kind of extends past that into the month of July to reports of illegal fireworks. So Captain Lopez, if you can share more with us, that would be great.
I believe Chief French was going to start us off first and say a few words.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Ms. Freestone, for bringing up the "Have Fun But Don't Shoot Your Gun" campaign. I remember that as a young officer. I first want to thank everyone for participating in tonight's meeting. I'm feeling a little bit under the weather, so Captain Lopez is going to do a majority of the talking tonight. But we are very encouraged that everyone wants to work together to address this issue of illegal fireworks. For the last few years, we've tried different approaches, but we continue to be overwhelmed with the number of people participating in lighting off illegal fireworks. And we simply haven't had the capacity to impact these numbers. Captain John Lopez, as I said, is the captain of our patrol division, and he has been working for well over a month, probably 2 months now, on a plan for fireworks moving forward. And I will turn it over to him.
Thank you, Chief. Well, good evening, everybody. It's nice to put some faces to the names I've seen on some of these emails. I just want to start by thanking everyone for being here. I know this is a lot of long process and a lot of people involved. So on behalf of the PD, just want to say thank you. As Michelle mentioned, this is what community policing looks like, right? It's not just patrols and arrests, but it's just the partnership that we have with our community, city council, our all of our departments within the city, is all of us working together to solve a problem, which is really great. As Councilwoman Wilson pointed out as well, this is kind of on a micro level. We're going to be dealing with Richmond, the city of Richmond only right now. The macro level is going to be how do we get these fireworks, commercial grade fireworks, from even coming into the state, which is a really big issue. And it's not just an issue for Richmond, it's an issue for a lot of cities across the Bay Area. So it's one that we really want to stay in tune with and try to find some answers for that. So I'm looking forward to any kind of strategy we can have regarding that moving forward. The Richmond Police Department, like many agencies, like I just mentioned, are facing staffing challenges in recent years. This has limited our ability to fully respond to July 4th fireworks calls in the past. This year, however, we're changing that up and approaching it a little bit differently. We are deploying over 20 police officers on overtime to support our zero tolerance fireworks campaign and our strategy this year. Our goal is clear: is to educate, prevent where possible, and enforce aggressively when needed. We will begin issuing public warnings and community messagings weeks in advance via social media, via campaigns, ads, not billboards, but signs. Community networkings can be very important for us. But when 4th of July arrives, the warning periods will end. Anyone found lighting commercial grade fireworks or illegal fireworks will be cited or arrested. We are focusing on enforcement in known high activity areas. Officers will be assigned in 2-person patrol cars across the northern, central, and southern districts. This is considered a citywide operation for all of our departments. So every member of this operation will have a defined role and an area of responsibility. All fireworks related enforcement activity will be tracked. There will be one master case number used for all seizures of fireworks. Individual case numbers will be issued for each citation or arrest. The Richmond Fire Department has identified a central coordination point to manage all of our logistics. Public Works and code enforcement vehicles will be used to safely transport seized fireworks, which will be turned over to the Richmond Fire for proper storage and destruction. And as Fire Chief Osorio mentioned, RFD will also be coordinating with the fire marshal to ensure that all the hazardous material is properly and efficiently destroyed or disposed of. A key addition to our approach this year is legal follow-through. We've partnered with our community prosecutor, Christina Hickey, to support enforcement with legal backing, which is going to be important for us. When a citation is issued by an officer or an arrest is made, there will be real consequences for those in possession of fireworks or those deploying them. We are aligning our enforcement with city ordinances and pushing to close the gap between citation and accountability. We received questions throughout the weeks about how to report fireworks and what actually helps. And here's some of the bottom lines is we do ask that you call the non-emergency number and give actionable details. Give the who, the what, the where, and the when. Give us descriptions, as many details as you can. Calls without usable information will be logged, but it might not generate the same response or the response that you're looking for. Just remember that during the 4th of July, there are fireworks going off throughout the entire city of Richmond. Our calls for service go up in numbers. Our dispatch center is inundated with calls. So the more actionable details you have, the better it is for us to respond out to those calls. Do not rely on emailing beat officers. This is not a reporting channel and may not be reviewed in time by our officers. Our goal is not to discourage any reporting. It's to focus on resources and the actionable intelligence that we receive. In the coming weeks, we will see more signage in key neighborhoods, as was mentioned before, more digital messaging online, and clear outreach in both in English and in Spanish. So everyone's aware, fines will start at $250 and can reach up to $1,000 for repeat offenses. These are pretty hefty fines, and so the first time offense would be $250, the second offense would be $500, and the third offense reaches up to $1,000. I want everybody to hear I want to introduce myself and meet everybody. I am the Patrol Bureau Captain for our police department. I kind of want to be very clear that we are committed to protecting our city on the 4th of July, just like every other day of the year. That means, holding those who are going to light fireworks accountable. It means ensuring our neighborhoods are safe, especially for those impacted by trauma, for your pets, your vulnerable residents. We're not trying to take the celebration away. I think the city has made it clear that we are about celebrating the 4th of July, but just celebrate it on the 3rd of July. Celebrate it at the marina and and watch the fireworks that are done by professionals. We encourage all of our residents to enjoy the safe and family-friendly events and leave the fireworks to those professionals. This is a shared effort, and I'm grateful for each of you, and I'm thank you for each of you guys for being here tonight. And I'll close it at that, just saying thank you.
Thank you, Captain Lopez. Appreciate the overview and the response, and definitely that information that I took away as not emailing things in, but calling things into dispatch when you see them. That's really important because I know we are inundated with emails way before the 4th of July and way afterwards. And it's fine to email, but make sure you make that call to dispatch first. So next up, we have our Public Works Director, Daniel Chavarria. Thank you so much for being on the line. So tell me, what does it look like for Public Works? What are you all facing and how do you handle illegal fireworks? What is your role?
Well, good evening. Thank you, Michelle. Good evening, everybody. My name is Daniel Chavarria. Michelle mentioned I'm the Public Works Director. So our participation in this effort right now is in the fabrication and installation of the signs that we want to install prior to the 4th of July celebration. So right now we are in coordination with the fire department and police department in the city attorney's office to finalize the sign that it will be put out there, that it will show people what will be the fines and what codes they will be basically breaking, that they would get that would end up with these fines. Now the graphics that we have received can be used for social media or any campaign, but I think it's important to have a single design that is supported by, as I said, the fire department, police department, and the city attorney's office. That way, people can be prosecuted if they, or fined, not prosecuted, I don't know if that's the right word, but fined with no issues if they don't follow these rules. So we would need, I mean, we have received also some locations in different districts on where to install these signs. So the first one, it would be completing the design that we're pretty sure and we're very close to do it. I know Chief Osorio has discussed extensively with the city attorney's office about the language on the signs. But after that, we need also the locations. We received from Janice Hogan, we received some locations in different districts. I can count at least in District 1 and 2, we don't have any locations yet. District 3, we have 8. District 4, we have 5. District 5, we have 1. In District 6, we have 4. So if there are more locations, it would be good if you can share it with us. That way we can add it to the list. And once we have the design, the locations, we can install or complete the installation. We can start installing here once we have the design. We're going to need about 2 to 3 weeks for the fabrication and installation of the signs. So the goal is to have the design of the signs and the locations by May 31st.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing that. You're going to be a very popular person because I think a lot of people are going to submit their location as a priority area for signs, right?
Well, I think also this meeting will be good to determine what will be the process, because we're not, I mean, I always make this joke, but we're not selling tacos here, right, left, right, no. It has to be an organized way that we receive this request. I appreciate Janice's effort to put everything in one single list, and that is coming through one channel, because I mean, who knows if it's another neighbor just playing I don't know if a joke or just being rude with another neighbor just by asking for a sign, that we'll go and install it there, and then we realize it's not something that nobody approved. So remember, it's I mean, we want to be mindful also of the process. So I think it's important if we discuss that in the
I
conversation.
think the best course of action for the signs is that we identify locations in the city that are city right away that the city installs, Public Works installs. And then if other people want signs for private property, we can make some signs available for that. But we're not going to put signs on private property.
That sounds a good idea.
All right.
Michelle?
Yes, go ahead.
I think that was the idea behind providing the yard signs, is that folks can have a not as well-built sign to put in their neighborhood. And I know that's been something that's been brought to my attention is, well, you got to put them in the hot spots. And I think the approach that we've discussed when we met together is similar to what we do for wildfire and some of these other campaigns. We're trying to target and reach the most people we can. And sometimes that's not the same location as where you feel you're hearing a lot of the fireworks coming from. The campaign, we have like limited resources to try to get the message out to as many people as possible. So we're looking at some locations that have high traffic. People are going to drive by them. They're going to see them highly visible and hopefully get the message to the greatest number of people in the community, along with the 23rd Street corridor, along the cutting corridor between Harbor and Marina. Those are highly traveled locations. Some of those are in hotspot areas, some of them aren't, but we can have thousands of people every day who drive by that sign for 3 to 4 weeks versus putting it on a residential street somewhere in the south side that maybe only 20 people drive by a day. And so that's really the approach that we're really shooting for, is the high visibility, high engagement areas of the city.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Appreciate the conversation around this. Let's dig into some questions, though, because we've heard from our panelists, and what we really want to hear from now is our residents and the public. And so there's a lot of burning, pun intended, questions that are in the chat. So I'm going to go and read a couple of them, and feel free for the most appropriate panel member to respond, or sometimes there might be multiple. Just keep in mind, timing wise, we want to get to as many of these as possible. So the first question I have is, are drones going to be used to locate areas where illegal fireworks are being lighted? So, I mean, are we going to be using drones in any of these operations?
So I can comment on that. So drones, we have ability and access. We just have to be careful on Fourth Amendment rights of our community members and the usage of the drones themselves. So if we're going up in a particular area, and then of course the property of the drone, they can be expensive. So if we're going into a community and we see fireworks going off, it's very important to note that we have to know who is lighting the fireworks. We have to know who is in possession of the fireworks before we can give a citation. If we don't know these factors, there's lots of times we come into the neighborhoods and fireworks are going off, and big commercial grade fireworks are going off. But by the time we get there, they're already been going off for the past 30 seconds, and we can't see who actually ignited it. We don't see anybody with possession of them because they're hiding the fireworks. So giving a citation is difficult a lot of times. If we are strategic about it, we can use drones if it's safe and it's proper for us to do so, and put them into a community where we're able to safely video who has possession of. So I don't want to say yes. It's a yes and no answer. If it's safe for us and it's legal for us to do it, we can, and we can make adjustments on a strategy. We use it as a strategy, but it all depends on a case by case basis.
Thank you so much, Captain Lopez. We have another question. People have reported that there are local vendors or people who are selling illegal fireworks. How are you handling some of those small local stores where some people come back with, they've gotten parcels and pallets of fireworks, and then there's a local vendor who's kind of like a third party who's selling it in the neighborhood? How does the city deal with that?
It's going to, oh, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I don't know that we've received any information on any particular stores or anything, but we can definitely follow up. I see Kevin Tisdale's on here from Code Enforcement, and Code Enforcement is the department that does the inspections of stores. And so with our assistance, and we would definitely follow up on that if we had specific information.
So that would be some good information if you're a member of the public and you know that there's a store that's selling these, to get that information to us so that we could follow up with that with Code Enforcement. And there's another question that I thought was a very interesting question is, could the signs be put up before people start buying the fireworks? So that is a timing question. And I imagine that might be yes, depending on the production of those for both Public Works and then for the public, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I think the goal is to get a finalized rendering and get them printed within the next 2 weeks. Correct, Daniel?
That is correct. That is correct.
And then there were some questions in the chat about confusion around California state law about the prohibition and of the discharge, possession, sale, manufacturing, or advertising of fireworks or safe and sane. So how gray is the gray zone between what you can buy that's legal and what you can buy that's not?
From my understanding, it's not gray. Maybe someone else can help me out on that. I'm pretty sure we are a zero tolerance city, which means you can't have any sparklers in the city. So any possession of that can get you a fine.
There's no such thing as safe and sane fireworks in Richmond. The only place that was still doing it in the county, I'm not sure if they still are, is Far East County. The fundraiser, the booster clubs are doing it. I don't even think they do that anymore. So I saw some comment about Costco. Richmond Costco has never sold fireworks. There is no safe and sane fireworks booths allowed in the West County, let alone in Richmond. And the only difference in the code really is in the severity of the fine, depending on the type of firework you're caught with. You could be cited for either one though, but the more severe fine is for the professional grade fireworks.
Yeah, and Chief, I don't know if you could take a moment just as an aside to define what exactly is a firework, because sometimes people have a very loose interpretation of what it is.
Oh, you want me to pull out the book, huh?
That's why you're the chief.
Oh, well, I don't know about that. Really, it's going to be any like pyrotechnic device, anything that explodes, emits embers. There is a more scientific definition in our Richmond code, to be honest with you. It actually defines the difference between the two. I don't have that in front of me. But basically that's something that can has a heating element, and sparks or embers can come off of it and may or may not be an small explosive device.
So it's not something that you buy at your local store where, it doesn't actually emit heat and embers and things such as that nature, because we've seen some of those. And so there may be some confusion about what they actually are for sale. Another question or comment, I would be happy to get my neighborhood council to verify some of the neighborhoods. So I think that's great. We definitely want to hear from you. This is an interesting one. What about a fireworks buyback program? Has this been done in Richmond? Has it been tried? Is it something that we could have the council allocate funding for? What do you all think about that? I know it's hard for some of our city officials to answer officially.
I don't think
How do you know about a fireworks buyback program?
I've never heard of a fireworks buyback program. Actually, I think the mayor did the previous mayor did something a couple years ago where he was offering money to people, but that was out of probably his budget. I definitely don't have a budget for that.
It's an interesting concept. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what other cities have done and see if there's any research around it. I see Sarah has her hand up. Go ahead, Sarah. I think you have to unmute yourself, Sarah. There you go.
It's not about this. That was something I was thinking about, and I have trouble manipulating the chat today. Where I am, the fireworks start as soon as it gets sunset, and sometimes even twilight, before that. And it goes on till like midnight. So when there are complaints and the cops go, and of course they can't do anything, they can't see them in the act. But I would think that the fireworks that are going off at 10 o'clock violate the noise ordinance as well. And I think the fireworks, if you measure the noise in decibels, is probably pretty significant, because I know my house shakes. So I wonder if that is another way to get at it, as far as the noise is concerned.
Very interesting question about how the fireworks intersect with the noise ordinance. I don't know, Chief or Captain Lopez, did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I think we run into the same problem as we do with the actual fireworks, is identifying the person that's actually setting the fireworks off to give the citation. I think it would just be a difference in the citation that's issued. But our problem is that there's so many people that are letting off fireworks, and by the time I actually have some video, and I don't know if Captain Lopez is able to show it or not, but I rode along with one of my officers a couple years ago, on 4th of July. And because I'm like, okay, I'm getting all these complaints. Let me see why we can't impact this problem. And it was amazing the amount of fireworks that are going off across the city. And by the time we drive to where we see the fireworks going off, there's a crowd of people. Of course, we don't see anybody lighting them off. They're still going off in the air, but there's no, nobody's letting us through. Actually, some people would even come into the street to try to block us from getting to
Yeah.
the fireworks. And we're simply outnumbered.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Chief. I see Councilmember Wilson has her hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to drop this into the chat. I think I put it earlier in the chat just so people that can see it, is basically addressing this exact problem, but that both from a noise ordinance and a fireworks ordinance perspective, it's really hard to catch people in the act. And so I put a KQED article if you're interested in sort of learning the supply side prevention strategy. There was an attempt last year to pressure the governor to sign a pact with Nevada that would have made it more difficult for California residents to buy tens of thousands of dollars worth of fireworks and bring them back here, which is one of the things that happens. And so, again, I totally appreciate that, getting stuff done from July 4th, we need to focus probably on Richmond stuff, but as a longer sort of a medium range plan, I hope that, we can get participation, both of the community groups and some of the staff members and I'm happy to do it as well, as to try to reinvigorate that campaign to tell the governor that we don't want this stuff coming over the border and he has things he can do to stop it.
Yeah, we have a lot of interesting things coming out of the governor's office this week. So we'll see what else comes out of the governor's office. So I think that was definitely an interesting point. We also had a question, and it was more along the lines of how we deal with kind of getting tips. I know that we have a tip line, but I guess the question is, are there rewards for people who can provide tips? Say they know that house on the corner that's always selling fireworks. Are there any resources to be able to award folks tips for, arrest of someone who has brought fireworks illegally into Richmond?
I think we do have the ability to offer some reward money for people that turn in people that we get some fireworks from.
Yeah, and then for the advertising of that as well, that was the other part of that question is to, it's hard if you don't know that there's, a tip line and a reward that's being offered, you may not use it. So being able to know that it's advertised through the city may be another thing. I see in the chat also a bunch of stuff about locations, which is very popular. I knew that would be a popular topic for the Public Works Department. So thank you for putting that information in and replying. And then there's another question about, can RPD conduct a sting operation to catch black market firework vendors? So as much as you can reveal without revealing the secret sauce, is that something that you have the capacity to be able to do?
Right now, we just don't have the capacity to do that. Undercover operations take a lot of time and effort, and we just don't have the staffing to do those things right now. We used to have ancillary units that would do those types of things, and we just don't have those anymore.
Understood. And so, some of the other comments are, the level of explosion that we're seeing. I know we get a lot of calls from veterans or even people. I live in Richmond. I grew up in Richmond who slept in the bathtub, during the 4th of July because, it sounds like gunshots. Sometimes fireworks are mixed with gunshots. You just don't know. So, understanding like how the mental health and the trauma of the community as they hear these things is impacted. And I don't know that we've ever approached it from that way. But I think from an educational standpoint, maybe that's another piece to consider is getting people to understand the mental health consequences of hearing that for a month long, especially if you've lost a friend or a neighbor to gun violence. Hearing that over and over again can't be good for your psyche. Other thing that was in the chat is last year there was an attempt to pressure the governor, talking about making a pact with Nevada to stop California residents who buy their fireworks in Nevada and bring it here. So Councilmember Wilson did address that issue, and she also left a link to that discussion and that article in the chat, so you can check that out. And then there was also another thing about gift cards for whistleblowers. So, when you all do rewards, what kind of ways do you entice people to come forward? Because I know that there's stigma around quote unquote snitching, right? So, sometimes people are like, I'm not going to tell on my neighbor. It's a cultural issue. We've been doing it for years. I'm not going to be the person on the block that spoils everybody's fun. Any thoughts about different kinds of incentives for those who come forward and provide information?
I think, like I said, if there are, we can explore doing some type of reward for people that, for things that lead, or for tips that lead to the recovery of fireworks.
Thank you. And then there's another piece here about ordinances. So, what if we were to host social host ordinances to help solve the problem of identifying individuals setting up fireworks? I hope I'm reading the question correctly and maybe understanding your question. But I think the idea is around would social host ordinances, so someone who's actually hosting these events, being party to the fine, be helpful?
I would say it's actually difficult to figure out who's hosting it.
Yeah,
They're in the middle of the street and half the block is outside. I think we would still run into the same problem of identifying who's hosting the fireworks.
the folks who are the worst offenders of this, that are lighting off the largest fireworks, the commercial grade stuff, they know that what they're doing is illegal. They're not ignorant to what the consequences are. And they go to great lengths to try to hide who they are, that they're the ones lighting them off. When we get called out for burning debris, oftentimes it's all these commercial grade, the cartons that were attached to a pallet in the middle of the street and the pallet's on fire. They do this because they know if it's in the middle of the street, you can't identify who lit them off. By the time we get there, this isn't a big intersection. Nobody's doing these in their driveway where it's easy to identify who they are. The smaller fireworks that aren't really the big problem, but are still illegal, those might be in someone's driveway. But the ones that you guys as a community expect us to take action on, those individuals know that they're doing something very illegal. They have a very dangerous item in their possession, and they're going to lengths to mask who they are. And their neighbors often try and protect them. Like Chief French said, we've gone to neighborhoods where people have blocked off the court so we can't drive in with the fire engines. I've gone as far as having burnt tires stacked in the beginning of the street so we can't drive a fire truck down. And there's 50 people in the middle of the street. We have no way of knowing who it is that's let off those fireworks. So I think as the community gets a better idea of what we encounter, you can match your expectation of, or at least understand the difficulty in trying to identify who's responsible in a lot of these scenarios.
Thank you, Chief. And it looks like, that's something that is really important to residents. I see some folks dropping in the chat that it's important to do something locally. And a lot of the comments I see here are about public education, anonymous hotlines, getting it into the school so that kids in schools are actually doing some education around fire prevention. And part of that might be working on illegal fireworks campaigns and getting folks involved. That's something that the fire department is currently doing, correct? Or is there a way for that to be expanded? I think you're muted, Chief. There you go.
Sorry about that. Our goal is that as we get this program, the goal was July 1 to really start kind of advertising. Our fire crews go to do public education events and show and tells at schools all the time. We can start incorporating that at the school age level. And especially if we have the flyers, we can include that and give them to the teachers. And that's a goal. But like I said, it's one small little drop in the bucket of the real big problem that I think has caught most of the attention is the adults that are using these fireworks. And those are the folks that we really want to try to identify. We can get the little kids to not play and hurt themselves, and that's really important. And we had some injuries over the years, and we've done an education push on that aspect for children and teenagers of the dangers of fireworks. We focus more on the health hazards than we have on the criminal aspect. because we really wanted to focus on their safety and kind of scare them from the topic versus try to threaten them with punishment, because we have encountered a lot of traumatic injuries. And that's kind of where the direction we take for the most part when it comes to education for the kids.
If I can add to that too, some of the prevention is going to be in the education piece as we're talking about, but it's also, what we're going to do beginning June 1, June 2nd. The advertisement of, hey, you get caught with fireworks, you can get a citation. The police department is going to be out in force that night. But this is step one of gradually getting it to where we have a peaceful night on the 4th of July, educating the community about the 3rd of July, about the professional fireworks that are going out on the marina. Like, bring your families to that. Don't waste your money and set off fireworks in neighborhoods. And make no mistake, the demand is high. We wouldn't have this problem if the demand wasn't high. The demand is high within the city. So you have lots of families within the city who want fireworks in their communities, who want fireworks in their streets. But we are understanding that there's a danger for that. There's a danger to the commercial grade fireworks in our communities. And that's why we have to address it the way we have to address it. The community, the culture is going to change. It's going to have to change gradually. And then also, again, the micro versus the macro, where are these fireworks coming in at, and how we can to limit that as well. So, I saw one of the messages that, I forgot who it was a little discouraged. It's a timely process that we have to manage everyone's rights and everyone's sense of community when it comes to this. So we're going to do our best to maintain, to have an operation plan, be strategic in what we do, and then also set a precedence for the future, as well as how fireworks will not be tolerated in our city.
Thank you. I see that there's a hand raise, and there's quite a few questions still to get to. So if your question's already been answered, please feel free not to drop any more in the chat around that subject, but we'll try to get to as many as we can because we only have a few more minutes left. Go ahead, Michael.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everybody. Last January and in February, we had a number of events that were occurring, and the next door folks contributed over 100 different data points of information about what they had experienced. And I took a minute to plot those places. Not because I care about fireworks. I'm just going to be honest with you. I just saw something happening there, and I do data. And I would like an opportunity to show the map, just to show you what we've come up with. Would that be okay?
I would defer that to Councilmember Bana. She'd have to make you a co-host to share.
Anybody can share, Michelle.
Okay.
Okay, so, and I'm sorry, now I'm fumbling with how to share. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Participants, chat, reaction, share, we go.
It's okay, it takes a little time for the technology to.
There we go, how about that?
There you go.
So this is 100 data points. And you can see here's Point Pinole here. This is the El Sobrani Valley here. And then we have, City Hall and stuff like that here. Here's San Pablo Avenue. And this sort of gives you sort of an idea. And there's an acoustic quality to all of this. But I'm going to come in real close right here. And you can see here is the El Sobrani Valley right here. And here's Hilltop up in here. Over here, Tara Hills, Country Club Vista, and San Pablo. We had a camera right here up in El Sobrante facing in this direction and actually recorded the event, but really all we see is light and shadow. I'm a photographer. I do light and shadow for a living. That I calculated that light direction was where this purple arrow is. I took and I isolated very roughly where each of the contributions from next door was. You see the Fairmead Hilltop. You can see them all the way over here on the other side of Hilltop. People here in El Sobrani hear it because that El Sobrani Ridge and the Berkeley Ridge create a sound funnel. Hilltop is like a pyramid, and it can broadcast its noises all the way to Hercules and all the way into central Richmond, and certainly all the way down the hill into Terry Hills and Chula Vista. And by calculating the amount of time it took between the flash and the actual boom, you can calculate how far away these things are. And it's just like counting for thunder or lightning. And you can see that the distance here in this white band is how long it takes for that to travel. And I want you to look at all these. These are all individual incidents that people reported on the 22nd of February. And the blue ones are where the windows shook and the doors shook. Okay? So this is not secret. This is something that we can understand, and we can point to places. And when I saw the efforts that we want to make to broadcast about signs, our signs and stuff like that, I didn't see this area on that list. And so I would like to see us pay a little bit more attention to this, because these were big. These, if your dentures are rattling in the cup by your bed, that's a big explosion.
That's a pretty big explosion.
I'll let
and
you go.
It's funny that you bring that up, because there's another question that kind of came up in the chat is, obviously selecting the locations and kind of hitting some of the areas that are the hardest hit. I know that we also had some data from ShotSpotter. Sometimes we, have some data that we can have pulled in the past. How do we look at the data points and be able to identify ways to be able to educate the public using data, but also being able to coordinate our enforcement efforts as well?
Yeah, we've used ShotSpotter data because, ShotSpotter we use for gunshot detection, but it also detects fireworks. They actually shut off the fireworks portion because it overwhelms the system. But we have the ability to talk to ShotSpotter, and I'm sorry, they're not called ShotSpotter anymore. They're called Sound Thinking. We have the ability to contact Sound Thinking and get the data from where the fireworks are going off. And years prior, we've actually used that data to go out and knock on doors to pass out information. So similar to what we're talking about here, we've actually tried that approach. We've gone to the houses where we know the areas where we know that the fireworks are being set off. We've done that. We've passed out flyers and pamphlets before, using similar to data to what you've already presented here.
Yeah.
However, I think some of the signage, we can use that data now for some of the signage that we plan to put out.
Got it.
You're welcome to it. Thank you very much.
No, thank you for sharing that. And thank you for taking the time to actually map those things out. My sister is a STEM person and she would love what you just did. So I appreciate you for doing that. We need people who do that. So just to condense a couple of the questions, and some of them I see have been answered in the chat. There were some questions for Daniel about how you submit locations. I think that got answered. There was another question about how to get other council members involved. I think that I would throw that to our council members. Is this something that the council is going to take a stance on as a whole or consider?
I think he needs to stop sharing so that we can see each other better.
There you go.
Yeah, may I answer your question?
Yes.
First of all, your council members are very involved. We're here with you. We're connecting the community grassroots campaign with the city administration. In terms of what needs to be taken to the city council, in terms of policy, ordinances, and tips, we hope it comes out of this campaign. So I would like to ask Chief French, there was a talk about tips. Do we need to approve something to have a tip or rewards for leads? Or you have the budget, you have the authority? And also I would like to ask Fire Chief to anything you're suggesting the city council in terms of policy, budget, anything, or Public Works Director, please let us know.
I heard a word I don't ever hear, which is anything. So
then
I hope you all take that seriously.
No guarantee we'll get it from the council, but we'll work on it.
Anything that requires, a certain number of votes. So yeah. But that's a good news is that, maybe there's some opportunity to, we have a couple of sessions before this actually kicks in to get some additional resources if needed. Couple of other things before we close out. I want to make sure that I got as many of the resident questions as possible. And thank you for bearing with us. We stay over a few more minutes just to get some of these last few questions. But, there's a lot of ideas that have been floated around tonight. it sounds like there's some that we can actually move forward with, and you all let me know as a panel, what do you think? I mean, obviously there's questions. The community has come up with these ideas for a campaign, being able to simply have signs printed, being able to have yard signs printed, being able to have a coordinated public media campaign, being able to work with the city. Is that something that we think we all can latch on to and come away with from tonight?
Definitely, we appreciate everyone's input. I think what we come away from tonight is, we have a plan that Captain Lopez outlined, but there are things that we heard tonight that we can also implement in our plan. So I think we could probably just go over next steps.
Yeah, and I wanted to make sure that I did that because that is actually a question that came from a resident. And I think that's really important. When we have meetings like this, everybody knows me, I don't like to meet. I like to meet to have something happen. I think that this should be action moving together. And I think one thing that I heard from tonight is that obviously there is a plan that is going forward for not only just the 4th of July, right? Because that's not just the window of when we hear it. There is a plan for the 4th of July, but ways that we can coordinate when we hear the fireworks after the 4th of July on the 6th, the 7th, the 8th, the 9th, the 10th, or leading up to the 4th of July. There is coordination between the police department and fire department and code enforcement to be able to work on those. We really need the help of the public. And I think the one thing that's added this year that will make a big difference is having a public education campaign that would be coordinated maybe with some of our public partners like this coalition, maybe neighborhood councils and other groups, to get the word out, whether that's window signs, yard signs. It's kind of similar to a neighborhood watch where we give you decals and signs and those kinds of things to share the word. And you may not get to all your neighbors. There's going to be some neighbors who are going to ignore it, but at least having a presence in the neighborhood, knowing that the neighbors are asking for us to just think again and reconsider before using the illegal fireworks. It also sounds like there might be some thinking in the long term about some long-term strategies of what can be done at a statewide level. In addition, maybe what can be done at our local level to strengthen our local ordinances. And so those are some things that I think I heard in terms of some takeaways, maybe even having a program where we can have people report illegal fireworks and there can be some kind of reward or anonymous tip hotline, or using our existing tip hotline to be able to share that information so that that information has an opportunity to go forward. And who knows, somebody may have a tip and we might find a whole stash of fireworks that would be set off sometime during this time period. But we got that information from a resident because we put that information out there. What's clear is we have limited resources, so we have to work together in tandem. We're not going to do this alone as a city, but we definitely can't do it without each other and without everybody who's on this line, who's joined this call tonight, and then others who aren't represented here. But sounds like that's a pretty good start to some of the next steps. I'm going to turn it over to the panelists to say if there are any other next steps that you heard or takeaways that you heard and things that you would like to do that are action oriented as we move forward.
I'll just say this. I think everything I heard today was very encouraging. So the proof is in the pudding, right, folks? And so I think I really get a sense that you're all committed to doing this. And so please keep us posted because we're going to be watching you. And we're ready to move. But, we want to see what you're going to do. And it didn't sound like window dressing. It sounds like you have a plan. It sounds like Captain Lopez is coordinating it and Chief Osorio. But I didn't get to be this age I am by being too naive about this. So let's see what happens. And I wish you luck. I wish all of us luck. So.
Thank you so much. Any other final thoughts or next steps?
I would like to say that I want us to stay in touch. Obviously, Councilmember Wilson and I are in touch. We are in touch with the city administration and department leaders, and we'll continue communicating. But I would like to stay in touch with the community. Please feel free to reach out. I'm grateful to the people who started the campaign. I'm grateful to the city leadership team. Together we can get a lot done. I hope the city prints the window posters. We will follow up on those. But if you don't hear back, from us in terms of reports, results, whatever, please feel free to follow up. All of us are here for you. Thank you.
So I have a question.
Go ahead.
So the whole street from BART all the way to end of Richmond Parkway, like 11th Street, right? We're talking about like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 blocks. So the people were doing fireworks in the middle of the street from 5 until like 1 o'clock. And I called Richmond PD 4 times, 5 times. The operator got so mad. And I didn't call like right away, one after another calls, but I called after like every 2 hours, 3 hours, and nobody responded. And there were fireworks in my, like, one of the fireworks hit my window. Next morning, I woke up, I had to clean all the debris and all that. So, I know that a lot of officers, like a lot of the people who work for Richmond PD, they don't live here, which is unfortunate. And, but we have to live with this thing, and then the operator always keeps saying, I'm not the first one to say this, that, oh, like somebody's on the way. And it's been like 7, 8 hours and nobody shows up. And how can we change that?
That is a very good point. And as a resident, and an employee, it's something that I would like to know. And I know Chief is also a resident. Did you want to respond to that?
Sure. Our calls for service on especially those days, 4th of July, New Year's Eve, are high. I mean, they're extremely high. So when we respond to these calls and there are 50, 60 people in the middle of the street, we can't identify anybody. We're going from call to call to call. We might not have time to spend any great amount of time in one location. I bet if we sat a police car there, they probably wouldn't do fireworks there, but they would go somewhere else. And there are just too many areas across the city that are lighting off fireworks, that we can't have an officer on every single street across the city. So we
What
do
about let's say if it's not on 4th of July, but like a month or 2 months before 4th of July and 3 months before 4th of July, and still like no officer shows up?
An officer should be showing up. So in those instances, if an officer doesn't show up, we have the ability to go see what is going on, why they didn't respond, and I can address individual situations at that time.
So how do we keep track of that though? If let's say 3 months before 4th of July, no officer shows up, the dogs are shaking, it's just the fireworks is going on. We call the non-emergency line, and nobody shows up at all. So what are you gonna do about it?
You always have a right to ask for a supervisor. That's one thing that I think is important for people to know, is that if you didn't get a call from dispatch or something is happening, you can contact the watch commander. We can actually go back and we can pull up the calls for service. We can pull up who was supposed to respond, what the disposition of the call is. So that is something that we can definitely work with you on.
But it's been like 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and like I call and nothing happens. I mean, there are like, I mean, it's pretty hopeless, the way the city has been run. I mean, we pay our taxes, we do our part, but it's not like a month or something. It's been like 5, 6, 7, 8 years. I mean, 9, 10, 11, 12 years. So what do we do about it? It's a pretty hopeless situation here.
I think, sir, what we can do is we could probably talk offline. I can give you my information. We can have
But here's the thing, though. It's not about the offline. The thing is, like, the officer, when they respond like, sometimes they come after like 7 hours, or next day they get called, right? So then, like, they're like, yeah, we're supposed to witness this, but we're not able to witness. But we suffered for 6, 7 hours, and the officer shows up like, you get a call next day. So that means we still have to suffer, though. That's the point. It's
No, I
like,
understand, and I understand the frustration, and this
and
is
it's not about the 4th of July or the New Year. It's about like, 3 months before 4th of July, 3 months before New Year's. I think a lot of people here, like, we are very hopeful that Richmond Police Department, like, kind of takes this seriously, because, a lot of pets and a lot of people and a lot of kids, they're in pain. And it's not fair, like we do our job, we pay our taxes, and it's nothing wrong to expect the same kind of work ethic or care for the community and the people. That's my point.
Yeah. I
It may
just
be
want, go ahead.
it may be a staffing issue. It's not that the police doesn't care. As the police chief said, they will have
So
extra.
a staffing issue for 8 years, 12 years, what is that? What does that
Again,
mean
this is a
again?
conversation that we could probably have offline, and I can give you my contact information. It sounds like this is a lot of frustration, and deservedly, I understand. If you want police services, you deserve police services, and we have to. This is I don't know if this is the time and the place for it. Uh, when it comes to the 4th of July or any other day, you call the police, you have a right to the police respond, no matter what. And there are supervisors, as Michelle had mentioned, as the chief had mentioned. I am one of the supervisors. I have all the patrol bureau under my staff, so I'm maybe the person we can talk and try to find a resolution for this, and we're happy to do so too.
Got
I
it. Would you be able
appreciate
to
that,
share
Captain.
the
Yeah, it needs to
information?
be,
And
Would you be able
my
to share the
it needs to be
information on the chatter?
offline.
What do
I
we
think
call?
we need to mute. Thank you. Just because we're running into time and I don't want anybody to think that your question is not important. It is. But we do have other hands that are raised. And I do think this is a really important conversation. So I definitely would encourage you all to have an offline conversation with Captain Lopez about this. He's responsible for
Got it. So I'm
everybody
just
on the
waiting for the
street.
information, like the phone number and the email.
I
If
can
staffing
drop that
shares
in
it, that's it.
I'll do it right now.
yeah, I can drop that in the chat for you just in
Thank you so
case,
much. That's all. Thank you. Thank
just so
you.
you get it. And I see Daniel's hand is raised. I think that will be the last question that we could take, but I saw your hand was raised. Go ahead.
Thank you. It's not a question, just to set expectations straight. I mean, in my calculations, we're going to be fabricating around 80 signs around that. Maybe could be more, but that means that to make the timeline that we need to start installing as soon as possible. So we're going to have to prioritize. So we're going to have 3 different tiers. Tier number 1 is going to be in the main corridors. That's as Chief Osorio mentioned. That's where we want to most people to see the signs. So that's where you're going to see them first. Then we're going to move to more like residential streets where we have received a lease from Janice. We'll use that lease and that as a guideline. And then the third tier will be residents that want to pick up the signs at the Public Works courtyard and take it to their properties and put it in their front yard. So those are going to be the 3 tiers that they're not probably going to happen at the same time. We want to fabricate the signs as soon as possible and start installing them. And as I said, we'll start first with the main corridors. That will be priority number 1.
I'm sorry, could you clarify, are they going to be like traffic signs being posted on the poles that says like street sweeping? Or
I need to discuss that with the staff. I mean, we're talking about aluminum signs for the ones in the main corridors, for example, and then lawn signs for for residential. Now, the idea too is that after 4th of July pass, I mean, we will have to define out which date, but that will be offline with the Chief Osorio, Chief French, when we're going to remove them, and that we can reuse them for next year.
very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then before we close, I think the issue of the printing has come up. So we will continue to circle back with the coalition so that we can work on printing some of the printed material and some of the yard signs. So the yard signs do take a couple of weeks to print. We'd have to get the artwork and other issues to kind of help with the design function. But I think that's something that we could probably get rolling on this week, next week, so we can start getting that into print. And Chief, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Just Janice and the folks who started that group with the graphics. We in one of our planning meetings, we reviewed all you guys' graphics, and thank you for getting those done. But we did identify that there is some information on those graphics that needs to be changed. Especially the one that references the health and safety code and the fine, because that does not match the citation people would be getting. So that graphic needs to be changed to an RMC code 1105020. And so if you can just make sure folks know, nobody jumps the gun and gets eager and prints those signs out, and then it's the wrong code on there. But that was one of the things we discussed. Just, yeah, I know I had told you about that at the council meeting, so share that with your group. And then I believe, Michelle, were you gonna, or did you want me to get back together with her on that code so they can adjust it on our website?
Yeah. So it sounds like a next step is we love the artwork. There are a couple of things that need to be tweaked in terms of the RMC and the actual code so that it reflects the codes. And then we also want to make sure on the language that we're telling people to call in when they see something and not just when they hear something, because that's going to produce a better result. So maybe what we can do with the coalition is get together with you all within the next week or so that we can finalize some details with the committee and try to get these things printed. And it sounds like we will have a budget to do that. It's budget time, so that's a good time to have some budget to do some work with. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate everyone. We have come to the end of our time. I really want to be respectful of everybody's time because we went over, but I think this was a very important subject to be able to have. Thank you to Councilmember Wilson who joined us, and obviously thank you to Councilmember Bana, and thank you to all the city officials and all the community members who were a part of this. And this is not easy stuff. You know, this is not something that can be overcome with one forum, but I think it gets us on the right grounding and the good footing to move forward in a positive way, this collaborative that brings everyone to the table. So the most important part of the meeting before you log off, if everyone can please drop their information, their email in the chat, especially for those of you who are city officials, please do so, because that's a great way for residents to stay in touch. So if you did not get your question answered, or maybe you were a little shy, or maybe you felt like, you know, hey, I don't know if I want to ask that, please do so that you can communicate with your city officials, because that's what government is about. It's about access, and it's about connecting us all together, because whether we work here or live here, if something happens in Richmond, if a fire happened, if we were like LA, we all live here for that intent and purposes, because we have to make sure that we're all safe. And we want to make sure Richmond's a healthy environment that we can enjoy the fireworks without having to deal with some of the side effects that we have from some of these illegal fireworks happening. So I'll give it a few minutes for people to drop their information in the chat, and I will turn it back over to Councilmember Bana. Thank you for allowing me to moderate tonight.
Excellent job, Michelle. Nobody could do it better than you. Thank you so much. I'm very grateful to you and to everyone here. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a nice evening. And I assume everybody put in their email addresses. Okay.
Yeah, you may want to wait a few minutes and folks can turn off their camera and, you know, drop their information in. Thank you.
Very good. Have a good night, everyone. Bye.
Good night.